We're on top of the Testament Aleph. We'll just review a little bit from the Testament base, 58b.
Okay.
8 lines from the bottom of the page by the 2 dots. Rav says, Mekel Adam Kol Gufa Bitar. A person is able to shave all the hair on his body, even with a razor. What's the problem with this? All his hair, meaning any part of his body. Somebody who shaves his armpits or his pubic hair, he gets malchus. So clearly we see here that there is a problem. What's the problem? The problem seems to be that it's a problem of layilbash geverson l'tzisha. A man should not wear the clothing of a woman, which the word wear is translated pretty loosely as sort of he shouldn't engage in feminine activity. And we'll discuss this more at length shortly. So the Gemara says, okay, habitar hab misparayim. It would be prohibited to use a razor, but scissors would be permitted. So Gemara says, hold on a second. Rav nami b'tar kama. Rav also says that it's permitted if you do all the hair, it's permitted with a razor. So Gemara says, no, entar, he means like a razor, but he's talking about using scissors. So the difference here is whether it's scissors or it's a razor. Amr Rav Chia bar Abba, Amr Rav Yechon. Rav Chia bar Abba says the name of Rav Yechon, Hamaver beis Shechi beis Erevon, like a person who shaves his armpits or his pubic hair, a man who gets malchus. Samara says, Meisvei, we see in the Brisa, Havora Ser Aim Devaterum Devaseifrim. That as a matter of fact, the prohibition, the act of a man engaging in a woman's activity is only rabbinical. Biblically, what's prohibited is just cross-dressing. So the Gemara says, "My like it." What does it mean when Rabbi Yechon says you get malchus? Rabbi Yechon says you also get lashes rabbinically. The truth is that biblically, the prohibition of leisilbash of a man not wearing a woman's clothing applies specifically to clothing, and not to sort of feminine activity. Okay, we'll see. Obviously, this is activity that's associated with appearance. Yeah, we'll explain shortly in more detail. Ikeda Amri, a second version of this brisa, indicates that Rabbi Yechon says you get malchus because of leisilbash. Evidently, he holds it's the oraisa, and not because of a rabbinical prohibition. And therefore, the question is, how do we square Rabbi Yechon with the brisa? The brisa indicates that you get malchus because of a rabbinical prohibition, not because of a biblical violation. So let's see the Gemara. Amr Rav Chia bar Abba, Amr Rav Yechon. So Rav Chia bar Abba says in the name of Rav Yechon, Hamaver beis Shechi beis Erevon, person who removes his armpit hair or his pubic hair, like him mishum layilbash gever simlas isha. He gets malchus because of layilbash, meaning he holds the prohibition of a man cross-dressing includes also other forms of feminine activity related to appearance. The Gemara says Meisvit. The Gemara asks the same question as before. Havora seir enim divrei. It seems the brisa indicates that actually the biblical prohibition extends just to wearing clothing, and not to a man engaging in sort of feminine activities, in preparations. So the Gemara says, no, this is a long established debate. Huda Amar ki haytani. He goes with this opinion. The Tanya we learned. Hamaver beis Shechi beis Ereva hareza over mishum layilbash gever simlas isha. There's another brisa that seems to indicate that it is a direct violation. In other words, a man violates the laws of cross-dressing by engaging in feminine preparations. Okay, so the Gemara says, if that's the case, if Tanakama, the first brisa, according to the first opinion, that leisilbash does not include a man preparing himself like a woman. according to that opinion, how do they understand that a man can't cross-dress? So the Gemara says, we need it for the following brisa, and this brisa has a fundamental debate about the nature of the prohibition of Liyilbash. According to the first prohibition, the first version, a man should not be wearing the clothes of a woman. My Talmud Leimer. What exactly are we referring to? If we're referring to a man dressing as a woman, the isha simlas ish, and a woman the clothes of a man, it says that this activity is an abomination. And the word abomination indicates to us that it has to be something that's abominable. And what is that? It's that a man should not cross-dress like a woman and hang around amongst women. And similarly, a woman should not dress like a man and hang around men. So this version is quite limited in what the prohibition actually entails. According to this first version, the biblical prohibition extends specifically to cross-dressing and acting like a man amongst women, or a woman or a man cross-dressing and acting like a woman a woman cross-dressing like a man and acting like a woman, like a man in front of men, or a woman cross-dressing or a man cross-dressing like a woman and acting like a woman in front of women or amongst women. Now, according to this version, obviously a man preparing his appearance like a woman, like a woman would prepare her appearance, not necessarily cross-dressing, but an excessive feminine focus on his appearance would be rabbinical and not biblical. Because according to this version, the biblical limitation of cross-dressing is specifically to cross-dressing and acting like you're part of the other sex.
But not doing the shaving.
That would not be included under the biblical prohibition, according to this version.
We're talking about cross-dressing Nazirim now?
No, we're talking about the prohibition of Yilvash Gaver Simlas Isha, but the fact that you brought a Nazir, we will get to.
Okay,
So hang on a second. Okay.
We're
about a third.
I fear to ask, but where are you guys?
We are on 59A. We're about a third of the way down the page. And the first one in the line is, 1 second, but closer to halfway down the page. The first one in the line is Eliezer ben Yaakov.
Got it.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, again, this is the second opinion. So the first opinion is, it takes the concept of cross-dressing and limits it tremendously. It's only cross-dressing and actually pretending amongst the other sex that you were a member of the other sex. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, how do we know that a woman is not allowed to wear, what do they call this? Military weapons.
Of war.
Implements of war. Weapons of war. So over here we're taking the prohibition and we're expanding it and translating it pretty loosely. So what does kli gever mean? Which is interesting. So a kli is a vessel, the vessels of a man. Now what the Torah could have said is bigdei-ish, right? The clothes of a man. Torah instead uses a much more expansive term, inclusive term, the term of kli gever, the vessels. What's a vessel of a man? Implements of war, weapons. So according to this version, a woman can't wear the vessels that indicate that she would be a man. This would be weapons of war. And a man should not wear the simla. The simla is literally the clothes, but it's also some more expansive words. What does that mean? A man should not prepare himself or prepare his appearance like the way women prepare their appearances. I.e., he shouldn't be, according to this version, the shaving of pubic hair and armpit hair would be a violation of la yilvash. of a man donning the way of life of a woman. And that would be biblical according to this second version. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. There's a very important note here. We are learning the Gemara like Taisvus' opinion, and we'll continue to learn the Gemara like Taisvus' opinion, despite the fact that there's a line of the Gemara that's very, very difficult according to Taisvus. Okay. That being said, there is another version of this Gemara. According to Taisvus, the entire discussion here is a question of specifically two spots of the body, the armpits and the genitalia. Nothing else. According to Taisvus, there's no indication at all from this Gemara whether it be permitted, for example, for a man to shave his legs. It's not part of the Gemara's discussion. Presumably, it would be permitted according to all opinions. However, there's another variant of the text. If you want to look, there's two Taisvus in here. You can see, and maybe the article brings it down on the side. There's a second variation of text which modifies the text slightly, and because of the line of the Gemara that's very difficult according to Taisvus' opinion, he changed the text, and the text now includes all forms of shaving hair. And that would include shaving the hair of, the arms and the legs, etc.
Yeah.
And according to that version, these things are certainly prohibited rabbinically and may be prohibited biblically. And okay, we're not going to discuss that, but it's important to recognize that there's more to the discussion than what we're just. I'm bringing you the Gemara the way Taisvus brings the Gemara, which is the way I usually bring you the Gemara, despite the fact that there is a line. It's a little bit difficult. We'll get to it in a moment. Okay. Amrulay Rabbana. 1 second. Amr of Nachman. Rav Nachman says, "Benazir mutter." If a Nazir is shaving all his hair, it would be permitted for him to shave, his pubic hair and the hair in his armpits. But less Hilchos say, and the halacha does not follow his opinion. Let's see a moment here. One second. Okay, let's continue. So the rabbi said to Rav Shimon bar Abba, "Chazina le Rabbi Yochanan deleslei." Rabbi Yochanan is the one who's saying, according to two versions of Rabbi Yochanan. According to the first version, removing armpit hair is a rabbinical violation. According to the second version, it's a biblical violation. So apparently they saw him in the mikveh or maybe somewhere else, and they saw he didn't have any armpit hair.
Yeah.
So they said to him, "We saw Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan is the one who's authoring this statement, and the Leslie he doesn't have." Amar Lahain. So the rabbis responded, "Machmas zikna noshru." It fell off because of old age. Okay. Hahu de Ischayev and Nikida Kamei de Rav Ami. There was this fellow. He apparently was, let's say, he was loose with his observance, and they were going to give him malchus. They're going to give him lashes for his lack of sincerity. Obviously, again, he obviously violated some sort of prohibition. We don't know exactly what it is. I would have my suspicions because that word is typically used in association with a few specific categories, but I do not see here. Did these guys say why he was getting malchus? We don't know.
Oh,
So footnote there. Why was the guy getting lashes?
why was he getting lashes? It was in the court of Rabbi Ami, and one footnote, and then the release, the individual was liable to rabbinically authorized lashes to the extent which determined by the judge when Rab Ami.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
uh,
That's enough. Okay, basically, so basically he was chayav malchus for whatever reason. He violated rabbinical prohibition and he needed to get malchus. Okay, so what happened? They're preparing to give him malchus, give him lashes. Egloi beis hasheching. So they took off they undressed him. They undressed his shirt and they removed his shirt and they see that he had hair in his armpits. Chazal megalach. They saw he wasn't shaving his armpits. Amar lahem Rav Ami. So Rav Ami says shivku, let him be. Deimin chavrayahu. Obviously, he keeps some of the rabbinical prohibitions because he doesn't shave, he doesn't cut the hair in his armpits. Now, according to the Taisus version of this Gemara, there is a difficulty because according to Taisus version of the Gemara at no point in time suggested that it would not be prohibited to do so with the scissors.
Okay.
In other words, the scissors would, according to Taisus's version of the Gemara, would be permitted. The person would be allowed to cut his armpit hair with the scissors. So, what's the proof of the matter? From the fact it could be the guy, even if the guy would have cut his hair, it still would have been permitted. As I was saying, the guy has armpit hair, obviously he keeps at least some of the rabbinical prohibitions. Hold on. He could have not had armpit hair and also have kept the rabbinical prohibitions. Doesn't prove anything, because he could have used the scissors. So this is a bit of a difficulty according to Taisus. According to the other version of the Gemara, the version we said which we're not going to discuss, which we won't discuss, but let's say that even rabbinically, that would be a prohibition. Rabbinically, it would be prohibited for him to cut his armpit hair with the scissors, and therefore, the fact that he did not cut his hair at all certainly indicates he keeps rabbinical commandments. He takes them seriously. So, and therefore, it seems that they stopped giving him malchus because seemingly they realized, maybe it was a mistake or something else, but the guy is stringent in rabbinical laws. Okay. Next Gemara. Boimine Rav me Reb Chia. Rav had the following question for Reb Chia. Mahu ligaleach. Is one allowed to use a razor, according to Taisus' version of the Gemara? Is one allowed to use a razor to shave his hair, i.e., armpit or pubic? Amarle also, it's prohibited. Amarle v'hakagadol. He says there's a problem. It's growing, and therefore it's not about appearance. It's more about it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant. Apparently, it was very long for him. Amarle bar pachsi. He says to him, it translates bar pachsi. The son of a coppersmith, I think it is.
Son of great people is what he translates.
Son of great people. Zman yeshlei. The hair only lasts a certain amount of time. Calls man shugadol noisher. As long as while a person's while it grows, it also falls off, and therefore it doesn't get to the point where it's unpleasant. Rav me Reb Chia. Rav had the following question for Reb Chia. Mahu lochoch. What is the story with if a person can remove them using his hands? Scratching. Amarle osir. He said it's prohibited. The big mahu with the same thing but using a garment. Amarle mutter, it's permitted. Ikadamri, another version is Bo'amine. The following question was asked: but tefillah bebigdei mai, is a person allowed to scratch his armpit through his shirt while he's davening?
Well, I wasn't expecting that one.
So he needs to scratch himself, and he wants to know if he can scratch himself through his clothing. Amarle osir. He said it's prohibited, but let's say. But the halacha is that that's not the case, and it is permitted.
Allowed to scratch yourself, okay.
Through your clothing.
Through your clothing.
In other words, if you scratch yourself without your clothing, you'd have to wash your hands, and that would be, and it should not be done during davening. Okay. 15. Okay. The next Gemara. So if anyone remembers the previous Mishnah, we had a scenario where we have two people. One of them become tamei. Do you remember that? We're together on that?
Yeah, I remember that.
We were both Nazirim. One of them becomes tamei. So what do?
We don't know which.
We don't know which one. So we wait 30 days, and they both bring a sacrifice. And the guy each one says, if I'm tamei, the tamei sacrifice is mine. The other one belongs to the other guy. And if I'm tahar, the tahar sacrifice is mine, and the tamei sacrifice is the other guy. And the other guy says the same thing. 30 days, then they both cut they bring the carbon, they both cut their hair, They wait 30 days, and what happens? They bring another carbon, and the guy says, if I was back then, I was tamei, then this is my carbon. And if I was tar back then, this is my friend's carbon. And his friend says the same thing. Now, of course, we like making things complicated. So now what happened was, before they had a chance to bring the carbonis, his friend died. I mean, Baruch Dayanemus. Okay, but now the guy's stuck, and he wants to know what he should do about it. Meis echad mehem, one of them dies. Amar Rav Yeshua says as follows: this is what you do. Yivakesh echad min hashuk. You find a guy in the street, and you ask him to be a nazir. Sheyadar connected ben nazir, that he should accept nazirus. And what do? V'aymer, and he says as follows. If I was tamei, haray ata nazir. So in other words, if I was tamei when, we were both walking together. If I was the one who became tamei, then what happens? Haray ata nazir miyad. You should be a nazir right now. V'im tar, you see, but if I was tar, haray ata nazir achash shloshim yom. Then you should be a nazir after 30 days. Okay, so what do? V'say from shloshim, you wait 30 days. Umevian carbon tuma, and you bring a carbon. I'm sorry, Mevian carbon tuma, the carbon tower. You bring a carbon of tuma and a carbon of tower. Of Aimer, and you say as follows: Imanihu atame. If I'm the one who became tamei, carbon tuma shall leave the carbon tahara shalach. The carbon tuma belongs to me, and you have the carbon tahara. V'imanihu atar. And if I am the one who's tahar, carbon tahara shali, the carbon tuma shalach, the carbon tuma besafik. If I did not become tahar, did not become tamei, that means I'm tahar. That means now is the conclusion of my naziris, and this carbon tahara is mine, and the carbon tuma indeed is a suffix, and it would seem to be invalid. Now, obviously, this author is with a few opinions. First of all, if we're talking about a man here, it obviously must be that he holds a kafas called reish leish mahakafa. That if a guy shaves his entire head, it's not called shaving his payas, because otherwise you can't shave your payas. And if it's a man, it could be it's a woman. The other point here is that he has to hold the chulun ba'azara is derabanan. Oh, you can't bring chulun ba'azara. Maybe you're not tamei. So how could you bring a korban tumah into the azara and have a biblical violation if you hold that if you're actually tahar, you never became tamei? Side point. Okay. B'say from shloshim, and you count an additional 30 days, and Mevian carbon tahara, and then you bring 30 days later, you bring a carbon tahara, and you say as follows: Imani had tamei. If I was when it became tamei, carbon tuma shali, the carbon tahara shalach. Then the first time we brought carbonis, I brought the carbon tuma, you brought the carbon tahara, and now 60 days after the fact, v'zeh carbon taharasi, this is my carbon tahara. However, the imani hu atar, if I was the one who was tahar, and therefore 30 days ago was my carbon tahara, so carbon tahara shall leave the carbon tuma besafik. The carbon tuma was wasted. V'zehu carbon taharascha. Now 60 days after the fact, the carbon tahara is your, meaning the other guy's carbon tahara, because it turns out his naziris happened 30 days later. Therefore, 60 days after the fact, he brings his own carbon tahara to conclude his naziris. You together? No. Good. Okay.
It's fast.
Amar Lei ben Zayma. Amar Lei ben Zayma. So Ben Zayma had the following response. Now, first thing we should point out here is that this sort of is a half a solution. Why do I say it's a half a solution? Because let's examine the other side, because that's what we'll see right now. So let's see Ben Zayma's opinion. Amar Lei ben Zayma. Ben Zayma says as follows: Umisha Bela Sheider connected ben Nazir. The guy's going to walk down the street holding his big protesting sign. Who wants to become a nazir? Who's going to listen to him?
Right.
Why should anyone accommodate the fact that he has a suffix tumah?
My first question was
I will see. It's a little more than that. Ella, what do? Maybe so you bring chadas oif v'oilas behema. You bring a chadas and an oila, and he says as follows: Im tamei yisting. If I was tamei, hachatas mechayvasei v'ha'oila nedovo. So the carbon chatas is part of my chatas that I need to bring after after becoming tamei. If the oila isn't of it's a gift. Being Torah, you see, and if I'm Torah, ha'oila mechavasi, the oila is the sacrifice to complete my nazirus. The chatas misafik and the chatas is a waste. It's a wash. The sefer shloshim yom, you wait. No, see, guy shaves his hair. The sefer shloshim yom, he counts 30 days, and maybe carbon tahara, and then he brings the full-fledged carbon tahara. If Ayman says as follows: in tamei, you see, if I was tamei, ha'oila harishayin in adava, the first oila was a gift. It was not part of my obligation to conclude nazirus. Vizunadava, and this is 1 second. Other Rishayna, 1 second. If time is Rishayna Vizuchayva, and this oila is part of concluding my nazirus. The imtara, you see, but if I was tahar, ha'oila harishayna chayva, the first oila fulfilled my obligation to end my nazirus. Vizunadava, and this is a gift. Vizu shar karbana, and here are the rest of his karbanos, a shlomim and an asham. Obviously, the shlom can be brought as a gift or not as a gift. Okay, so what's happening here is as follows. We're doing is we're stretching the nazirus. So it happens if he was tahar, he brought his oila 30 days ago, and the remaining two karbanos, the asham and the shlomim, are being brought later, 30 days later. And if it turns out he actually was tamei, so then he brings the carbon tahara, the chatas in the beginning. The oila is a gift. And all the karbanis tahara and oila shlam and asham are all being brought at the later stage. Okay. So now in this scenario, what do? We wash the carbon chadas. Carbon chadas is inevitably going to be washed, right? Meaning, perhaps it will be brought for a purpose, perhaps it will be brought purposelessly, because he never became tamei, and we can't make somebody tamei. A nozir tamei, it's a prohibition. So therefore, the chatas is always going to be washed. So what's the difference of opinion? According to Rabbi Yehudah, the first opinion, we're gaining the fact that we could bring a full carbon tahara in the beginning, a full carbon tahara 30 days later. Meaning days 30 and 60, we can bring a full-fledged carbon tahara, and either it belongs to one person or the other person in either occasion. According to Ben Zayma, we have to split the carbon tahara into two. There's an oila shlom and asham at the end, and an oila in the beginning. If the guy was actually tahar, so he brought the first carbon on day 30, and then remaining two carbonates on day 60. And if he was tamei, he brought all three on day 60. So we're slicing, splitting the baby, as they say.
If he doesn't have anybody else to do it.
So according to Ben Zayman, no. According to Ben Zayman, there's no obligation to find somebody else. Rabbi Yehudah says there is an obligation. And we see here that the accomplishment of Rabbi Yehudah isn't that significant. One of the karbanos is going to be a wash. That's going to be the carbon chatos.
Okay.
Rabbi Yehudah is gaining is an advantage on the oila shlam and asham. According to Rabbi Yehudah, you bring two sets of oila shlam and asham is the karbanos brought to end in nazirus. According to Rabbi Yehudah, you bring these three animals twice, and they are certainly valid to end nazirus. Just don't know whose nazirus they're ending. If they're ending my nazirus, or the guy who's a suffix tamei, or the other guy, the volunteer from the marketplace. According to Ben Azai, you end up bringing an oila that's an extra oila. You bring two oilas plus a shlam and an asham. One of those oilas is going to be a gift, which is perfectly acceptable. It's absolutely legitimate to bring an oila as a gift. Obviously, the purpose of an oila typically is a gift. In addition to having the oila, shlam, and asham possibly separated by 30 days. That's the other loss that you have by not having a volunteer from the marketplace. And Ben Azai says you're not obligated to go find a volunteer. We'll soon see that actually Rabbi Yehudah agrees with him. We'll get to that in a moment. 1 second. Okay. Rabbi Yehudah did not like this. It turns out the guy is splitting his concluding carbonites into two because he's bringing his oila first and his asham and shlam he's bringing later. Meaning, let's say he did not become tamei. Let's say this person did not become tamei.
Okay.
So what happens? If he did not become tamei, then the oila is brought on day number 30 to end his nazirus, and the shlam and the asham are brought on day number 60, also as part of ending his nazirus. There's sort of a long stretch in between. Okay. So that was Rabbi Yehuda's counter argument. But at the end of the day, the rabbis agreed to Ben Zayma that one is not obligated. In other words, even Rabbi Yehuda agreed to the Ben Zayma that one is not obligated to go find a volunteer to accept this type of naziris. Okay, so the Gemara says, 1 second. So the Gemara says, "Velesi, let him bring his karbanei split." In other words, what's the Rabbi Yehuda's argument on Ben Zayma? You're splitting the cake, right? You're bringing the oila first on day number 30, and the shlom and the asham on day number 60. Now, by the way, on day number 60, you're also bringing another oila, because maybe he actually was tamei. Therefore, all three of the naziris actually concludes on day number 60. But on the chance that he was tahar, you're splitting the karbanos. You're bringing the oila to conclude his naziris on day number 30 and the shlom and the asham on day number 60. So Gemara saying, what's the problem? So why can't you do that? What's wrong with bringing the karbanos at two separate points in time? So Gemara says, you're right. Amar of Yehudah, Amar Shmuel. Yehudah says in the name of Shmuel, Amar Rabbi Yehoshua al Chad Bas Talmidim. Rabbi Yehoshua was trying to sharpen his students. In other words, sort of like a riddle. Well, what would the solution to this complex problem be? The answer is even a more complex solution, right? Although obviously the halacha is that the halacha follows the opinion that ultimately he is allowed to bring his karbanei split in the pathway that Ben Zayma explained to us. Rabbi Yehoshua agrees to that. Okay, this last Gemara is a little unclear according to Taisa's opinion.
So unusual.
1 second. Okay. Amr of Nachman. You look in the article. The article has, if you don't go to Taisus, there are some more satisfactory explanations of this Gemara. Amr of Nachman. I'll explain to you the two explanations in a moment. What will Rabbi Yehoshua do to the intestines so that they don't spoil? What exactly does that mean? So according to Taisus, what it means is as follows. According to Rabbi Yeshua's, this is not a great, according to Taisus' preferred explanation, I don't find this incredibly satisfactory. I don't find that it sort of answer. It doesn't seem to be such a strong question, but the question is as follows. So what happened, according to Rabbi Yehoshua, day number 30, we have two people shaving their heads, right? We have the volunteer nazir plus the suffix nazir. If he's actually tamei, he has to shave his head. If he's tahar, he also has to shave his head. So he shaves his head. That works. Okay. 1 second. Okay, now so both people have to shave their heads, which means that you have to wait from the zrikas hadam, the sprinkling of the blood of the karbanos, until after two people shave their heads. And Taisus presumably, according to this version, it actually takes quite a while to do that. Why does it take a while to shave somebody's head? You look at the Chassidim getting the haircut, 000. It takes pretty quick. If anyone's been to a barber shop in Borough Park, it's really a 3-minute haircut. I don't know. Maybe the razor takes longer.
Every man's dream.
Yeah.
A fast haircut.
I don't actually know why. Maybe it's because they had to prepare it and save it to put underneath the fire. I'm not 100% sure why it would take so long, but it would take long enough, obviously a couple of hours, that the intestines would spoil. So in other words, the portion of the sacrifice that would be brought on top of the mizbeach, the altar, is going to spoil before it has a chance to be brought. Maybe the intestines spoil very quickly. That's also a possibility. I don't know. The other version
signifies a lack of intestinal fortitude, Rabbi.
Oh.
Very good, very good. Okay, now the other version of the Gemara here is that because the karbanos.
Excuse me, Eric, I hate your guts.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was telling Eric I hate his guts. Also, I was thinking we need to start a WhatsApp group for people who want to volunteer to be a Nazir.
What was that?
Oh, we need a WhatsApp group for people who want to volunteer to be Nazirs.
Okay, the other version of this Gemara would be as follows: that sort of because the oil is being brought first. Let's say the guy who might have been tamei is actually tar. 1 second, hold on. Hold on a second. Okay, 1 second. According to another version of the Gemara, this is not clear why this would be the case, but there would be an advantage because the guy who's a suffix tummy, maybe actually he's ending his Nazirus, maybe he actually ended his Nazirus now. 1 second. Okay. I can't say I'm not 100% sure what the second version is. 1 second. Let me see. Okay, yeah, there we are. Okay, according to the other version, it's as follows. We're talking, in other words, this is actually supporting, Rabbi Yehudah does have an argument against Ben Zayma. His argument is as follows: because you're splitting the Oila and the other Karbonis, and the Shlom, right, the Shlom and the Asham, which are being brought on day 60, so therefore there would be an advantage to holding the intestines for 30 days and then sacrificing them. This way, the shaving of his hair that he does at the conclusion with the rest of his karbonos happens after he ends his Nazirus. Okay, so then it would sort of make sense why it would get Ryan. It's not clear though why that would be necessary. Be that as it may, leave that here. Stop.
Stuff it in the freezer.